On most days, nobody noticed when the woman in the wheelchair rolled into the company cafeteria. But on this day, everything stopped when a little girl carrying a peanut butter sandwich marched across the crowded room, ignored every whisper, and climbed onto the empty chair beside her. Before anyone could react, the child smiled and asked, "Can I eat with you? My daddy says no one should have lunch alone." For the first time in years, the CEO forgot how to speak. Every weekday at exactly 12:15, Evelyn Brooks entered the cafeteria through the side elevator. The routine never changed. Neither did the silence. As CEO of one of Seattle's largest sustainable architecture firms, everyone respected her. Some admired her. Most feared disappointing her. No one joined her table. Employees nodded politely before choosing seats far away. It wasn't company policy. It was habit. People assumed she wanted privacy. In truth, Evelyn dreaded lunchtime more than board meetings. After a spinal cord injury during a mountain climbing accident 8 years earlier, life had become strangely smaller. Meetings, interviews, charity galas, she could handle all of them. But watching hundreds of co-workers laugh together while she sat alone was somehow harder. She never complained. She simply smiled, opened her salad, and counted the minutes until work resumed. That Tuesday, a new maintenance contractor arrived. His name was Daniel Carter, 37, widowed, father of 6-year-old Sophie. Daniel repaired commercial HVAC systems across the city. That afternoon, Sophie's school called. A broken water pipe had flooded several classrooms, forcing an early dismissal. With no relatives nearby, Daniel had no choice but to bring Sophie to finish the last 2 hours of his maintenance job. The building manager reluctantly agreed. "Just keep her close." Daniel promised he would. Sophie spent an hour coloring quietly beside the maintenance room. Everything fascinated her. The elevators, the shiny floors, the enormous windows overlooking Seattle's skyline. Then lunchtime arrived. While Daniel spoke with another technician, Sophie wandered into the cafeteria holding the lunch her father had packed. She immediately noticed something everyone else had trained themselves not to see. One woman, one table, completely alone. Children rarely understand office politics. They understand loneliness. Without asking permission, Sophie walked straight toward Evelyn. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Conversations disappeared. Security guards exchanged uncertain looks. Daniel turned around just in time to see his daughter sitting beside the CEO. His heart nearly stopped. He hurried across the room. "I'm so sorry," he began. Before he could finish, Evelyn gently raised one hand. "It's okay." Sophie slid half her sandwich onto Evelyn's plate. "My daddy says food tastes better when it's shared." A tiny laugh escaped Evelyn before she could stop it. It had been months since anyone had made her laugh without trying. The next morning, Daniel expected to receive a complaint. Instead, the building manager smiled. "The CEO requested that your company continue handling this building." Daniel was surprised. He assumed it had nothing to do with yesterday. He was wrong. Over the following weeks, maintenance projects kept bringing Daniel back. Whenever lunchtime arrived, Sophie asked the same question. "Is Miss Evelyn eating alone again?" Sometimes she was. Sometimes she wasn't. Because slowly, almost accidentally, the lonely table became less lonely. First Sophie, then Daniel. A week later, one nervous intern asked if she could join. Another employee followed. Within a month, the isolated corner had transformed into the cafeteria's warmest table. Nobody announced the change. It simply happened. Evelyn noticed something strange. People laughed differently when nobody felt intimidated. She laughed differently too. Then came another surprise. One rainy afternoon, Sophie wandered into Evelyn's office carrying a crayon drawing. It showed 3 people eating lunch together. Above them she had written, in crooked letters, "Nobody should eat alone." Evelyn thanked her, but after they left, she quietly placed the drawing inside the top drawer of her desk, next to another drawing, one made by her own daughter, 9 years earlier. A daughter who had died from leukemia only months before Evelyn's climbing accident. No one at the company knew. She never spoke about Emily. Not because it hurt less, because it never had. The following week, the company faced its biggest financial setback in years. A major client canceled a multi-million-dollar project. Budget reductions became unavoidable. Department heads suggested cutting outsourced maintenance contracts first. Daniel's company appeared near the top of the list. Evelyn stared silently at the proposal. She knew canceling the contract would save money. She also knew exactly whose family would pay the price. For several long seconds, the boardroom waited. Finally, she spoke. We'll find savings somewhere else. Some executives argued. She listened patiently, then closed the folder. Our buildings can survive delayed renovations. She paused. Some families can't survive another lost paycheck. No one challenged her again. Daniel never learned why his contract remained untouched. Until months later. The company's annual community day invited employees' families for games, music, and food trucks outside headquarters. Sophie proudly pulled Evelyn across the park in her wheelchair, pretending they were racing Formula One cars. Both laughed so hard they nearly tipped over. Daniel watched from a distance. One senior executive approached him quietly. You know, she said, your daughter changed this company. Daniel smiled politely. I think she just likes making friends. The executive shook her head. No. She pointed toward dozens of employees eating together on picnic blankets. Before Sophie, nobody realized our CEO had been grieving alone for almost a decade. Daniel looked toward Evelyn. She wasn't watching the crowd. She was watching Sophie chase bubbles through the summer air. For the first time in years, Evelyn's smile reached her eyes. As sunset painted the sky orange, Sophie climbed onto Evelyn's lap. Are you happy now? The question was innocent. The answer wasn't. Evelyn looked across the park. At families laughing, co-workers talking, children running, Daniel cleaning spilled lemonade before anyone slipped. Life wasn't perfect. Her legs still couldn't move. Her daughter was still gone. Some wounds never disappeared. But loneliness had. She kissed Sophie's forehead. I'm getting there. Months later, visitors entering headquarters noticed something new. The lonely corner table had disappeared. In its place stood one enormous communal table stretching through the center of the cafeteria. No reserved seats. No executive section. No isolated corner. Anyone could sit anywhere. A small wooden plaque rested in the middle. It didn't mention the CEO, or the company, or success. It simply read, the strongest people aren't the ones who sit at the head of the table. They're the ones who make sure no chair stays empty. Because sometimes the greatest changes in a person's life don't begin with million-dollar decisions. Sometimes they begin with a little girl, holding half of a peanut butter sandwich.